Okay, happy, joyous people. What did we, where did we get to? So long ago, like 2 days ago. Let's see if we. Do we do this thing with the paragraphs and the breaking down of the paragraphs? We did do that. I'm going to introduce this thing. All right, so the idea is this. This is what's due for Tuesday. These two things, and so I'm going to talk about one of them. So you're doing the chapter 2 quiz. You're reading chapter 2 and taking the chapter 2 quiz, which is about summarizing. So now this is like assignment number 1 is sort of like the first, I don't know, real assignment as opposed to the fake ones. What? It's going to be, it's a summary and evidence assessment. So what that means is you're going to deal with this essay that's in the book called Why America is Self-Segregating. You have 2 things to do. One is you're going to write a paragraph summary of that. And then you're also going to like analyze evidence from it. So we're going to sort of talk about what that means. The summary, here's what I put up here. So like in order to do a summary, what you need to identify and know from an essay is the main idea and like all the supporting ideas that are in the essay, which is why we did this thing. So the theory is if you use something like this, right, where you break down an essay into the main idea, which would just be the thesis statement in this case, right? And then supporting ideas, you know exactly what you're supposed to be putting in your summary. So you break it down and you have your main ideas, you have evidence just like we did. And then you basically go through and just deal with the primary, the supporting ideas. Like that's what you use. So I'm going to show. I thought we could try. So we're still doing so I wanted to try this in class with this one that we're already supposed to have read. The Other Side Is Not Dumb. Did we read that one already? That was assigned for this. So let me show you. Basically, what we did to those paragraphs, as far as identifying and breaking them down into these pieces, we do it for an essay. So the process is the same, it's just longer, and it makes a little more sense. Meaning you don't ever really write a summary of a single paragraph because paragraphs are already sort of just short. Summaries mainly are for longer. Let's see if we can. Okay. So there's a couple things that are a little different about an essay and a paragraph. So first of all, you're finding the thesis statement instead of the topic sentence. So that's the first thing that you're finding. So you're looking to the end of the introduction to find what the main idea is. This is all a bunch of talking. I mean, like just words that she's using for things, or he is. I don't know. She gets it right. I'll never know. So all of this, okay, this is cute and everything. And then you're trying to get to the first like main idea, since the introduction is all of this sort of, I don't know, opinion talk or whatever we want to call it. But you come to the sort of first idea where this idea about false consensus bias. Right, which is the idea that you sort of surround yourself with people who think like you. And so it's way easier to be like, the other side are idiots because everybody I know thinks the way I do. So that's going to be sort of the main thesis of this. So every article or every essay we read, the thesis statement lives at the end. It lives somewhere in the introduction area, right? Sometimes it's much longer. Like this is a pretty long lead up to it. Sometimes it's like right there. Then you're basically, well, I want to try it, see if it's an experiment. My idea is that you can go through and almost just start pulling the topic sentences, and those are the main ideas. As long as they're ideas and they're not, what would we say, like evidence. Sometimes it begins with something specific, but almost always, if the first sentence is an idea and not like a specific evidence or a quote from somebody, that's all evidence. Let me do that. I'm not even really, all I'm checking is to see if the first sentence is specific or if it's a different idea than the one that I just wrote down. You've got, okay, online, we can be blindsided by opinions of our friends or America. Next main idea, we have this, what's developing is the worst kind of echo chamber, right? Where we all are convinced that everyone shares our own view. This whole section here is a quote from this person, right? So I'm not even, I don't need it for this. Because that would be evidence, right? Any quote or any information that would live as an evidence, probably for this supporting idea, just like we did before. Right now, all I care about is the broad ideas. So I thought we could try to do this for the one that you're actually going to be writing about, to practice this or even set it up so that when you sit down. So I'm going along doing this, right? When I need to write my summary, all I'm doing is I would probably copy and paste all of this into one like paragraph. And then my job is to communicate whatever it's saying in my own words, and the summary's done. This is going to have some more supporting ideas. was that thing I showed people that everybody knew about? If I download it, or if I upload it to my little. This is that, right, I'm opening it in Google Docs just so I can copy and paste it easily, but it also screws up the formatting a little bit. No, I don't think that's going to help me. I need to see where the paragraphs begin. So what, so is this part clear enough, sort of? I mean, so I'm gonna have you, so you want to download another template here. So you can get that if you go to Blackboard, you go to the week 3 module thing. I mean, you can also write it out, something special about it, but it says that exercise or whatever, but you only really care about the template at this point. Did you guys already submit the breakdown? Along with the multiple choice part of it, right? Those are together. Good. Sweet. So you want to download this, another version of this or an empty template. And again, you're probably going to need more than just 3 supporting ideas. I want to keep okay. So let's open the one that we're supposed to actually do for this assignment, number 1. So if you can get your ebook, it's called Why America is Self-Segregating. Or did we find it? Why America is Self-Segregating, 219. So this is what we're trying to have people do. This and the template. So this is the setup. And again, I know it's supposed to be first you read it in depth one time, then you go back and read it a second, like those things. I don't know if that's people do all that all the time. This is really, you're skimming and pulling the ideas out so that you can create a summary of it. And almost always, the main idea of a paragraph is in the first couple of sentences. Right, so you're looking for the thesis, which we said was actually at the end of an introduction. So I guess I could include the one before it, but basically this is the main point is going to be this last sentence. This is the thesis of the whole thing. American public self-segregating, and this is tearing at the social fabric of the country. So that's the main idea or the main thesis. Right, and that's that. First idea. Oh. This is all just focusing on, I mean, to be smart, which would be good, I guess. So all we care about at this case, this go around is the main idea. So anything that's specific, any examples that are given, any numbers that are given, any quotes from people about things, you don't, that's all evidence, right? Which is the second part of the assignment, but the first is to write the summary. So try this. So try this because this also will set you up for being able to do this assignment. Go through and see if you can sort of identify main ideas. Again, I don't know if I'm being clear or not, I can't tell. Anything specific is an example, right? So this one, first supporting idea, many in tech world imagine the internet would connect people in unprecedented ways, allowing for divisions to be bridged. Okay, that's the main idea. And then it's going to use Facebook as a specific example. So that's evidence and talk about that. thing I'm noticing is sometimes the writer puts in like something that's against their point, which is a counter argument, which we'll do eventually, like saying some people think that, you know, this is the case, but actually this is the real thing. So this one about like morale is often raised as the main reason that soldiers should not be forced to entrust their lives to people who are different from them. So this is sort of against the argument in this military part where the author's about trying to be like, look, the military, one of the things about it was that it sort of forced people to trust each other and sort of broke down a bunch of the barriers, like cultural and ethnic barriers that used to exist. Because when you're in the war, you have to trust people who are on your side. Okay. This makes sense or not yet? Not really. Too late now. So this is the, I mean, it's just like when we did that in class, the game is really just trying to identify and separate out ideas from evidence, right? And again, so there's lots and lots of words. So that's why it's not super easy to do it. But anytime an example shows up or loading people, you just leave it. Right, whatever, 7, something like that. This is kind of a long one I'm noticing. Okay, so in the end, so because this is a pretty long one, you end up with a bunch of statements that are all ideas, right? Or basically, they're all supposed to be ideas. And so then you have them all. If you, well, it depends how, if you put them together, you have this sort of paragraph of ideas. And then the summary you make basically is condensing it down and articulating it like in your own words, right? Because you're condensing is the. What more am I gonna have to do? Let's see. Oh, good, we're almost done. That's about right. So we get this idea, yeah? Okay, let's do the next part of this then. Here's writing C, I think is what I call it. That's the other in-class work. That's you can week 3 module, it's just writing C. You want the writing C. This is about evidence. Okay, so the next thing that we'll need to be able to do, this is just a quick thing about being able to identify the types of evidence that people use in essays. Going towards the goal eventually of being able to evaluate whether they're any good or not, but so we want to be able to identify them and sort of name them, right? So you have statistics, but you have specific types of statistics. So the first one is just raw numbers, when people just use a large number to show something. There's how many, like this is the example, right? 117 million people visit. So that's one type. You have averages, which we know about, right? Like grade point averages, right? Any types, that's another type of statistic. You have statistical probabilities. This is sort of where you're, I don't know, telling the future a little bit based on information, right? So there's a 20% chance of rain, like you're sort of projecting that because based on information that you have. So probabilities means predicting. Trends means you're talking about something and how it's performing over a certain amount of time, right? It goes up, stock market went up 10% in January's, and it goes, and usually in the fall it goes up 30 or whatever. So you're talking about trends, so it's over a period of time, what something does. You're measuring something falling or gaining or whatever. So you want to be able to distinguish between those, right? First, know that it's statistics, which is easy because it's numbers, and then what kind. Another type of evidence is testimony. I've talked a lot about this expert opinion one, right? Where you quote someone who's an authority on the subject that they're talking about. So that's supposed to be, those are experts, and that's what we use in research papers. We try to. There is another type of testimony, which is like personal experience. If you think of like courtroom cases, there's eyewitness testimony, right? Meaning somebody has seen something or was a witness something or whatever. And so that's also evidence. That's valuable evidence in the sense that you have somebody who can tell you what happened. They were there at the time. So there's that type of testimony, and then, right, experts. Then you have specific things, right? So examples are, and we talked about examples, I think, a few times back, but it's like a thing, it's like a specific thing that's an example of a larger group of stuff, right? Cheerios, example of cereal. So it's when it's something sort of specific, like a thing, but it represents something broader, like a broad category of a bunch of things. Toyota, right, is a type of car. You know what I'm saying? Of course. Case studies. So this is sort of like in social sciences and all sciences too. But case studies are like sort of an examination of, I think of it mostly like in, I don't know, social work or psychology. Like a case study is an examination of an individual or a group of individuals for a specific thing. Case study about vaccinations or whatever, right? You have a group of people, but then you sort of focus on individual studies, these people's particulars, I guess. Stories, narratives, telling of stories, also evidence or type of evidence. Historical events, also evidence. So here's what you're doing. You're going through this by yourself and then maybe talking, but first, so all you're doing is, these are all examples of types of evidence. So you're going through and deciding what it is, like which type of evidence it is. And you want to be specific. So you don't want to just be like statistics. You want to try to figure out which type of statistics. So do that first. So go through it. You're using this thing. I think all of them sort of belong there.
you, when you're identifying the type of evidence, you have to like give an explanation why is that, or just
No, just for now, just decide on one. We'll go over them and then you can defend it, explain it probably. What number are we on? Are we done or we're not done? I'm gonna go over it with a partner, right? Just go through it and see what And if people have different answers, then you're trying to figure out what the answer is, right? Who's right, who's wrong? It's fantastic. How many are there? 12, okay. Yep. Yep. Right. Anyone? That way? Okay. Yeah, I've never been. Good luck. Yeah. The number 4 should be 2 different ones. I'm going to split it because I want to use it as a, well, it'll still be 4, but there's 2 different things going on there as far as evidence. And I need it because I don't have any other. So whenever your partner's done, you can start going over it, see what you got, and then we'll go. This is sort of what you'll do for this assignment. In the essay, you're going to just be picking out what types of evidence are being used. So this is just a exercise to start thinking about different types of this. Oh, wait, well. This is the original, right? Number 3, then. Is that what I meant? 4 or 3? I might have meant 3. Which one's the General Electric one on yours? 3? That's the one I meant I want to cut in half. Meaning there's 2 examples in 3. My bad.
We should go back and forth. Pretty often, I think, specific examples. Eyewitnesses for that one. Just because, like, sorry, happened, it's like, I know people that were affected, that make them eyewitnesses. Third one, statistical trends. How we're on.
So,
The fund, I put raw numbers.
From 6, I put example.
thank you.
It's like, just, it's like a media thing. 7, expert. 8, historical. I put the historical number 9. Yeah.
Right.
11 examples. Right there. Well,
I just heard pressing up on.
One of the tricks is like how it's hard to do it like this. I'm noticing like when they're sort of separated from the context that they're in, like how the information is being used. Because you could use the same bit of information sort of in a couple ways. Like this one, the second one I put, it's narrative for 2. If it was clearer, for example, that this was like testimony from somebody, because it sounds like it could be like, it could be an eyewitness, but it's not being presented as an eyewitness, like somebody saying, and then the eyewitness or in court, the person said this, and then you'd be like, oh, okay, so it's that. Without that information, it's just like narrative of events, things that happened, right? Like this happened and then that. So number 3 was the one I broke in half because I wanted to use the first part of it as an example of an example, right? Because what I mean by like a specific thing like General Electric is an example of a larger group of things, which are companies that don't pay taxes or companies that are in the United States that don't pay taxes. So it's an example of that, right? It's a specific example of a group of things, a broader group, I guess. And then the second half of that is statistical average since it says average. I don't know. You can argue, by the way, if you want to yell at me. You know, the passion of it, I know. So these two, I don't. So I put a raw number for 4 and historical event. Historical event usually needs to be like a significant, something has happened that's notable that doesn't always happen, right? Like it's some sort of like, and that's what this thing is like. The most support here for any in more than half a century. So it makes that sort of like a historical event because it's never happened before type of thing. And then the numbers, just I think it's just a number. Yeah. Just gonna let me get away with all this nonsense. All right, here's one that I'm not sure about. What'd you put for 6? The Minneapolis-based thing, yeah. Narrative. No, it's maybe description. It's describing, but it's not telling events. Like first this happened, then this happened, then this happened. It's the well, are we looking at the same one? That's the other thing I'm noticing. What do you got? Okay, that was one. That's one it could be, I think. Expert opinion. Who has the expert opinion? Right. So that would be one possibility I had, but okay, so it's an expert opinion. How many people had expert opinion for that for 6? Just curious. What else did we put? West Winter, because there's probably another one. Yeah, something like that. Case study, or actually that might be better than example. Because I was thinking an example, but case study means it's actually, yeah, I think case study might work, right? Meaning there's a bunch of information that they collect about this one place in order to draw a conclusion. Whereas an example is General Electric is one of the companies, is an example of a company that doesn't pay taxes. I like case study better though. All right, so case study is a bunch of information about one thing in order to like draw a conclusion of some sort. Think of it like doctor's offices. Here's the symptoms that this person has, all of these symptoms together, put together, and it comes up with a diagnosis. That's like a case study. 7. What else? Expert opinion for 7, yeah. Should agree, maybe. I don't know. Okay, these are ones that are weird. So here, if you read this one, it goes, 80 years later, in 1997, this intellectual standoff clanked to a dismal conclusion when world champion Garry Kasparov was defeated by IBM's Deep Blue supercomputer in a tournament of 6 games. What did you put? Yeah. Okay. Did everybody put historical event? Anyone put anything different? Here's one thing. That's what I sort of was looking at, but here's the difference, because the next one is also a historical event, right? But the difference, you could almost make a case for this 8 as being a narrative, in that it's also because of the language that's being used, right? So it's sort of describing this event that happened, it's sort of just the end of it or whatever. But because it's using, you know, sort of language like clank to a dismal conclusion, it's sort of narrating something that happens. Does that make sense? The other one doesn't. It just sort of says, he played this, this is what they used to call it, and they played against this guy. So you could make a case, but I would say historical event probably works definitely for both of them. I should keep track though. And then 10, expert opinion, yeah. 11, example, because it says example. I was getting nervous that I didn't have one for example, so I think I was like, I don't know. I don't even quite understand what that means. It's so very meta. What do we put for 12? Yeah. Okay, probably not, because it's not really drawing a conclusion of some sort. Like it's not really coming up with. So you have on Wednesday evening, they hosted this reception, other ideas for this one. Because it's not like a bunch of information and then being able to be like, we're drawing a conclusion about a thing, I guess. So what else? Yeah. Yeah, I think narrative is probably the best because it's not, if it was an eyewitness, the person would be like describing stuff going on at the party, right? Then you could be like, that's an eyewitness. Someone's like, and then I'm there, I'm looking at them, they're doing this and that. You don't even really know when it is, so I don't think it can be historical, really, right? These other ones actually do use dates, so it means it matters, except for the Trump one. Yeah, I think narrative is probably the best idea. It's just this person starting to tell the story about their son or whatever. All right, so look and count how many of, well, not count. I want to know which ones there are the most of in this list, like the types that are the most represented. I'll put this here. So for yours, I mean, whether you change yours or not, or you use the ones that you originally did, that's fine. What ones are, you have more of those than other ones? What do I got? I got, no. That's one. Yeah, so maybe historical event is the winner. And then maybe, I don't know, second would be like, for me, expert opinion or whatever. The reason this matters is because for this second part of assignment 1, in that essay, the Why America is Self-Segregating, you're trying to go through and identify evidence, and you want to pick an example or 2 examples that are used the most in the essay. So sort of like this, in the sense that I have historical event is used the most. So if this was the essay, I would be like, all right, so one of the types the person uses the most is historical example. And here is one of, and then I just pick one to deal with. I'll show you what that means. Here it is. This is in the assignment itself, or describing the assignment. You're picking examples 1 and 2, so are representative of the type of evidence the person uses a lot of. So in order to do that, you have to go through and sort of note what kinds the person's using. And then if you're like, all right, so one of the kinds they use a lot is expert opinion. Here's one of them. And then you answer basically these questions. Eventually, this will be a paragraph, but if you want, you could just answer the questions, basically, because it's a rough draft thing we're doing. Right, I think that's easier. I don't know, for me, it's easier. So you decide, okay, so expert opinion's one of them. I pick an example of it, and then I do the thing where I explain and describe what it is. I talk about what part of the argument it's being used to support. Like, why are they using this expert opinion to say what? How is it supposed to persuade the reader? It's an expert opinion. It's supposed to be somebody who knows what they're talking about. Is it persuasive? And then what are weaknesses of this type of evidence? Well, if the person's not well known, or you don't know they're an expert, stuff like that. So you do that for 2. So you pick the 2 different types of evidence, but the ones that the person uses the most, like first place, second place, something like that. The one they use the most, the second one they use the second most, something like that. And then 3 and 4 are weird. So 3 is trying to get you to be, to try to think about what type of evidence might exist that would, in real life, that would contradict this person's argument. So this person's talking all about how we're sort of self-segregating in these different ways. And you want to think of a way in which, like, well, that's not totally true. You know, that people are still they're not always just self-segregating and listening to their friends and things. And if you could think of a real life example, you would be like, this is an example of something that contradicts the person's argument. And then 4 is really actually just then you're trying to make up something. Like if you could find evidence that would contradict it, what would it be? Right? Like I'm thinking some diversity project thing that would contradict her idea that we're sort of segregating ourselves, something like that. Anyway, do your best with those, like give it a shot. The first two are pretty straightforward though. You're just finding types of evidence. That makes sense, that part? So basically that's it. So you've got your summary paragraph you're doing, and then you've got your assessment of evidence, and you can use the little chart. Have it done before class on Tuesday so that we can work on it in class. It's not turning into an essay. It's literally will turn into a single paragraph and maybe 2 other paragraphs. The hope is, or the idea is that as we move forward, you would be able to use these things you're making in the essay that's coming up, right? So like trying to do little bits, and then when it comes together, we put it together. That's the hope. So it's worthwhile. Questions of it? All right, I'm done talking. You want to hang out, get some breakfast? Yeah, I think that's it. So make sure you submitted. So you actually, if you didn't do that, you want to do that. For the thing we just did, it's writing C. And that's all you did was just labeled them. So just submit that to writing C. And that's the end of writing C. And that's it. I will see people on Tuesday. Have a good weekend. Be healthy and safe and all the good stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
So we have a paragraph about each paragraph, right? So I have idea right there,
Yeah.
and then another one where each one starts, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So while you're doing that, and then once you have all those, you're going to write your own paragraph that summarizes all of them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So there should be like 9 of them, right?
Probably.
More or less, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I came up, yeah, that's basically, and so I put them all together. And then when I read them, I'll be like, okay, I got to say, and I'll just put it in my own words, and it'll be a shorter public paragraph. Yeah. Yeah. So you guys have a good weekend.